Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Verified, and today we're going to go through the Hammer 1275 kit that I am starting on the Sportster, and we're going to go through the parts list first, and then I'm going to take you over to the bike and then show you exactly what's already been done and where we're going to go from there. So without further ado, this is the parts. So first we've got 1275 cylinders with pistons inside. They're huge. They're absolutely massive. And then behind that, I've got 4 quarts of oil, transmission fluid, gasket kit that I haven't taken out yet. This is the new clutch pack, and that is going to have upgraded clutch plates in it with an additional clutch plate instead of the middle spacer that is bolted and is prone to failure. And in addition to that, I've got these twin power brake pads. So we're going to give those a shot on the front and rear here. Bought this oil filter wrench because they're always a pain to get off. Oil filter itself. Then I've got this Drag Specialty steering damper. It's supposed to be pretty damn good for high speed stabilization. So we're going to give that a shot. Then I've got the Harley Davidson premium oil cooler. So this is the oil cooler itself with pre-cut oil lines. Underneath here we've got all kinds of wiring and brackets. So we'll give that up the light there. Yeah, all kinds of wiring and brackets. So that's going to be real fun. Haven't even looked at the instructions yet. Clutch spring compression tool. So that's going to be interesting, because I've never used one of those before. Then we've got the DynoJet Power Vision tuner. So that's going to be interesting as well, because I haven't read the instructions for it or how to tune it yet. So we'll see. Came with a cool DynoJet sticker, so that's cool. Then over here, we're going to go over here to the parts that have already been taken off, which include ignition and coil pack, tank, seat, pipes are over there, and then to the fun stuff. So right now I have this labeled at, well, not really labeled, but laid out as front and rear respectively. So we got rocker box covers here, and then the actual rocker boxes themselves. So we've got valves here, or the valve rockers, or whatever you want to call them. So we got those there, and their bolts, push rod tubes, and the same for the rear. Now, interestingly, I don't know if you guys can tell me what the difference is, but these push rod tubes look exactly the same on the front and rear. I have them laid out for front and rear. So this would be, I believe, intake, exhaust, and intake, exhaust, or vice versa. So I have them laid out the same, just in case, but they look the same to me. I don't see a difference. So if you guys know the difference, please let me know, and then we'll go over here to the bike itself. So I will say, first thing is that the intake manifold, which is right here, I have it zip tied up here because I didn't want to take the throttle cables off. So that itself is so hard to take off, because you only have about, I would say maybe 2 or 3 millimeters of clearance, and then you have to like push them out with a flathead screwdriver to get them to come out. Those flanges are really hard to take off, which is fine. I mean, we got it off, but just heads up to people who want to do this, that is difficult. So then next issue that I had was I didn't have a 12-point half-inch socket for these, which is just, I mean, you'd think that a normal socket would fit on that, but it doesn't. And there's one here and one here on both cylinders, and you've got these two. So I had to stop and go get one, which is why it's now 9 o'clock at night and we're doing this later. But this actually isn't a bolt. I believe this goes on the actual cylinder head, the stud itself. And I'm not sure about these ones. I don't know if they're like this or not, or if they're actual bolts, but it looks like there's high potential to break one of those if you got an engine with a lot of miles. So if you're going to do this, please be careful with it, or you could have a really bad day. So next step would be to obviously take the spark plugs out, which we've done once, but we put them back in so nothing would fall into the cylinder and cause some damage. So we just put them back in temporarily. I would suggest, from my experience so far, to take out the front one first and then do the rear, because just of clearance issues. As you got the frame here, it's very low clearance here versus up here, where you can at least move the wires out of the way. So we've got that. So yeah, and also real quick, there is a little connector right here. I know the light's not very good. It's about right here where my finger is. That is actually for your low fuel indicator light that comes up on your speedometer, and that is horrendous to take off. I mean, it is literally so bad, because as you can see, there's no plastic cover here. It's because I had to cut it off because the screw would not come out. If I knew where it was, I would show you, because the screw was literally just turning inside the plastic and it wouldn't come off, and it was the only screw that held it on, so I couldn't even like pry it open to get it out, which, I mean, it's whatever. Like, it's protected by the front cylinder, so I'm not really that worried about road grime and stuff getting up in there. So I've never had a problem with it so far. I had 7,000 miles on this bike, no problem yet. So we're going to take off the cylinders here, and then we're going to rebuild the top end, and then I'm going to get in here and do the clutch, because I don't want to have everything tore apart and then try and remember where everything is. So I'm doing front cylinder and rear cylinder at the same time. So I'm taking both parts off, like one after the other, and then take the cylinders off with the pistons, put new pistons on. We're basically going to do tear down and rebuild up here first, and then we're going to do the new clutch plates and then readjust the clutch. So we've got a fun day ahead of us tomorrow, because this has taken approximately like 5 hours so far. It's because I've had some help doing it, but none of us have had the actual experience of tearing down an Evo engine, especially a Sportster Evo engine. So this is a learning process, and thankfully Hammer Dan over at Hammer Performance on YouTube is providing us with some great insight on doing that. So big shout out to him and Hammer Performance for supplying this kit and actually providing the knowledge out there to do it, because if they were not providing the knowledge for it, it would be game over. Because I personally can guarantee people that a lot of people who are not as mechanically inclined would greatly mess something up. So I'm props to them for putting the information out there on their website and on their YouTube channel, for actually supplying the means to do this. So another thing that I've heard, I guess we'll find out, is that the DynoJet tuner, the stock tune that you get with this, that you flash or that you load up, will only be good for about 20 miles. And then you have to run the auto tune function on the tuner to start readjusting the values on the tables, which I guess we'll see. All the videos that I've seen of the first startup are pretty rough, and then, you know, the more you go, the better it gets. But I guess we'll see if I have to go and get it dyno tuned, so that'll be interesting. I hope I don't have to, because I don't really want to spend the money to, but it is what it is. So yeah, that should about do it for this video. I'll see you in part 2 and continuing the engine teardown. So right now we are at the stage where we're putting the cylinders on. So as you can see, we've got the front one on and the back one. So I don't know if you can see this or if you notice this, but that stud is missing. So I'm going to give you a backstory on that, and that is actually, we had the cylinder on and the piston in the rod, wrist pin, in there. The circlip was on, and we were putting the bolts on, the ones that the 12-point bolts, or I guess they're kind of like reverse bolts. We were putting those on. These two were supposed to be first, and then these ones. So we were torquing this one down. This one had already been torqued, and we were torquing this one down, and it snapped it clean off, about right here, about halfway up on, about halfway right there. And I'm not kidding, it literally looked like a Twizzler. It was like warped where it had been spinning. So our theory is, and so when we started to put the torque wrench on it, it basically snapped it off because it was trying to pull the head down on this. And these are the steel gaskets, the 3-layer steel gaskets. So we think that just with the added width in there, it was just too much for that stud, and we pulled it out. Luckily, they're only $6. So we're on hold so far right now with this. Well, with the cylinders at least. We're on hold there, waiting for the Harley shop to open tomorrow to see if they have a new one. Hopefully they have them in stock. So we're gonna get that and then get finished on this. We'll get the rear head on first because it's more difficult to get to, and the front one, rocker boxes, and then rocker box covers, and that'll be done. And while we were doing this, we also did this oil cooler here. And let me tell you, this was a pain. This was horrible to do. Not because it was difficult, it's just the location of it. So really, this is your return line from the oil cooler, and if you can see back in there, that actually returns into where the oil sensor was before, the oil pressure switch. So we had to relocate that in the old supply line, which is down in here. Excuse my garage, there's so many tools in here laying around. So this is the new supply line for the oil cooler. It goes up in here through the other side and on the outside. This is the oil pressure switch right here. It's behind this. It's the little silver thing right there, and that's the wire for it. So we had to relocate the oil pressure switch from underneath the filter housing to here, to the old supply line. Then the new oil cooler supply line went in. The return line went in to where the oil pressure switch was, and then you cut the old switch wire off, and then you add the new one in, cut it to length, and then basically just put heat shrink on it, and then you're good. So there's that. So we did that in the meantime. Next step is we're going to try and do this first so we can not have to worry about stuff falling in there. I want to get that over with, and then we have to do the added clutch plate. So right now I have them soaking in oil per recommendations for up to 24 hours, or minimum of 24 hours. So those are soaking in primary fluid right now. Then the old clutch pack comes out, new one goes in with the extra plate, and then we basically just adjust the clutch, take the slack back out of the line, and then we have that done. Then we have to tune it. So I don't know anything about these Dynojet Power Vision tuners. I don't know anything about them. I know they plug in pretty simple. The wires here, I mean, that looks like it plugs right into the ECU and then plugs into the tuner. So that should be pretty simple. So I guess we'll see. I'll take you around over here to show you the heads and stuff. So right here is the new Hammer, the Hammer 1275 cylinder. And here is the front head rocker box with the lifters, the rocker box cover, and this is the rear one. So I believe this is an oxygen sensor. I'm not sure because the front one didn't have it. So I guess we'll see about that. Here are the old pistons. This was the front one. Looks pretty burnt, doesn't it? Looks pretty crispy. Here's the rear one for comparison. I would say they look about the same. So push rod tubes, these are the old wrist pins and gaskets for the push rod tubes. And these are the 3-layer steel gaskets that I was talking about. That actually adds a lot of thickness than with stock. So that would make sense on why that would strip that out. Here is actually the screw that did it. As you can see, it's not really a bolt. It's kind of like a reverse nut. It's like a bolt that's also a nut. It's just weird to me. It doesn't make sense. But there's that. And we have push rod tubes here and push rod tubes there with the actual push rods themselves. So all in all, I mean, it's really not as complicated as a lot of people think. I mean, these are your valve screws with the rockers that basically keeps the whole thing down, and then this bolts it to the head. These 3 plus these 2 bolt this to the head, and then these are what control the pressure on the valves. So it's really not as complicated as it looks. Thankfully, I don't know, thankfully and not thankfully, I didn't buy the cams, so I didn't have to get into the cam chest any, and so I don't have to mess with that. I'm just reusing the stock 883 heads because we're going to keep it to a 10-to-1 compression ratio. But even then, this thing is still going to scream. We're going to go from about 46-ish horsepower at the wheel to about 76 to 80 at the wheel, just off of these heads. I'm going to grab the old cylinder and show you guys the sheer difference. I believe this is the front one here, so we'll show you the difference in size. I'll go around the side a little bit. So yeah, it may be hard to tell, but it's a pretty noticeable increase in size. That is rather large. So one thing I noticed when I took it off, there is absolutely no scoring inside of here, so I know that when I do this one, it's going to be great. We're not going to have any issues, hopefully. Knock on wood. Let me knock on wood. We won't have any issues. So that is the update so far. I'm going to go ahead and put this video out, and then I'm going to do another video with the complete assembly of putting this together and hopefully first start. So there you have it, guys. This is about halfway through the Hammer 1275 kit plus oil cooler. The only thing I haven't touched yet is the steering stabilizer. I believe it's supposed to go about here-ish somewhere on this fork, and then it's going to go here, I believe. So, well, stay tuned to see that. Haven't even broken it out to look at the instructions yet, so I don't know for sure, but we will get to that. I would say probably as soon as we finish here, or maybe even before then if we don't get that stud. Because really, it's basically the same thing as an exhaust stud, because it has these threads here, and then right here it has a divot, and then it threads straight into here with red Loctite. So it was super if you ever break one of these, as long as it doesn't break near the casing, you'll be fine. You can get a bolt extractor on there, pull it right out, because that's exactly what we did. I'll show you what we used. We used this stud extractor, and it's amazing. It literally goes straight on there, and you can use your impact or a drill or a 3/8 drive ratchet and pull it straight out. As long as you've got enough room for this to bite. It works great. I got it at Advanced Auto, and it worked like a charm. So keep you updated. We'll get the final assembly of the top end done and get that steering stabilizer on there and that clutch pack in, and we'll be ready for first start and hopefully get it back on the road with no issues. So fingers crossed, guys, and stay tuned for the next episode.